And good evening. I'm Ted Langdell, and we are here at the Caltrans building in Marysville, California, and we are about to begin the special Bullards Bar and Oroville Dam Operation Manual update that the Corps of Engineers is bringing us here.
Shout out to my back. Thank you. So welcome to the new Bullards Bar and Oroville Water Control Manual Updates Scoping Meeting. My name is Jenny Fromm. I'm the Chief of the Water Management Section for the Corps of Engineers at the Sacramento District. So as you come in today, a couple of housekeeping things. There's some sign-in sheets on the red table in the back. Please write your name and contact information on there. If you do have some questions and or comments, please write those down. And then we'll talk more today about if you have other comments once you fill that form out, where you send those. We are also being live streamed today at the Yuba-Sutter.LIVE on YouTube. And we are also posting a video because we are recording on our public website. So with that, let's get started. So I'm going to turn the microphone over to Mariah to introduce herself.
Hello, everybody. My name is Mariah Brumbaugh. I am the NEPA Regional Technical Specialist for U.S. Army Corps of Engineers Sacramento District, so I'm the environmental lead for these projects.
Wonderful. Next, we're going to talk through the meeting overview and kind of why are we here. And feel free to write down your questions as we go through things today, and then after the presentation, we'll have time for a couple of questions. The main goal today is to get your comments and questions. We're not going to be answering any technical questions today, but we want to know what your questions are so we can answer them in the future. So the meeting purpose is we are updating the water control manuals for New Bullards Bar Dam and Oroville Dam. And because those dams are owned and operated by two different agencies, we will be updating two manuals, one for each dam.
All right, so the purpose of this evening's meeting is both to introduce the fact that we are doing these water control manual updates and also to kickstart the NEPA process for both the New Bullards Bar and the Oroville water control manual update projects. During the NEPA process for both projects, we will be analyzing various alternatives in order to update the water control manuals for both dams and reservoirs. But before this happens, we need to engage with the public and during scoping, this first step in the NEPA process. During this process, we ID any key issues, potential impacts, any additional alternatives that we may not have thought about in our process so far, and that's where you guys are going to help us, hopefully. So during this meeting, we are going to be Jenny will be introducing you to the alternatives that we have been discussing so far in the process. We're going to discuss various resource topics that we think may be affected by the updates to these water control manuals, the changes that we might be making to these water control manuals. And when I say resources, I mean environmental, physical, and human resources. And provide you all with the process through scoping to share any of those previous points, questions, concerns, problems with us throughout the scoping period. So we have a comment form that you can write down, but we also have an email address that you can send us any comments or questions that you might have as well. So we'll give that to you towards the end of the presentation.
So first of all, let's talk about the study area. So the Yuba-Feather system, it's a watershed area of over 5,800 square miles with the elevation up to 9,300 feet. There's two multi-purpose reservoirs operated as a system for flood control. That's New Bullards Bar and Oroville. Coordinated operations objective is to avoid exceeding the objective flow at the confluence here in Marysville, and that is part of the reason why these two water control manuals are being updated at the same time, because they both have impact on each other depending on what the releases are doing at that time. An additional dam was planned in the area, the Marysville Dam, which was never built, and both of those water control manuals still reference that dam, so we want to be able to take that out. All right, Oroville Dam. Tallest earth-filled dam in the United States, holds 3.5 million acre-feet of storage with 750,000 feet of that for flood control. It's a key facility of the State Water Project, and it has a gated and emergency spillways were recovered after the 2017 incident. New Bullard's Bar Dam is a concrete arch dam with a crest length of over 2,300 feet, has a capacity of nearly 1 million acre feet, with 170,000 acre feet of that for flood control. Other project purposes include water supply, power generation, recreation, and conservation. And they're also in the process of designing and hopefully constructing a new secondary spillway. So some key terminology that we're going to talk about today and throughout this entire process. So we wanted to kind of give you the definitions of these so like everybody's on the same page. Some of these are a little technical, so if you have questions about that, please let me know and we can talk through it. So first of all, what is a water control manual? So a water control manual is the operating manual that the Corps of Engineers authors, and it's used to make day-to-day decisions about releasing water through the dams in the flood control space. So basically, it's your flood control operations manual. Now, because it's called a water control manual, it can get a little confusing, and you might think like other aspects of the water releases from this dam will be in there, and they're not. So it doesn't have any of the conservation rules, water supply rules, etc. Can you have me on water? Yeah. Perfect, thank you. Take a little sip here. So top of conservation. That is the calculation that's done every single day that's going to tell us the amount of flood space we need in that reservoir on that given day. So if the water storage on that given day is above the top of conservation, the Corps has the jurisdiction, AKA you're in the flood control space. If the water supply, the water elevation is below top con, the water users have control over those releases. So for Oroville, that's the California Department of Water Resources, and for New Bullard's Bar, that's Yuba Water Agency. Guide curve. So guide curve is the designated water surface elevation on that particular day about which the decision to store or release water is made. If the actual water supply surface elevation is above the guide curve, a decision to release water is made. If the actual water surface elevation is below the guide curve, a decision to store water is made. And like that's a complicated one, so that's why I read it to you verbatim. But you know, it's very similar to TopCon, but it can be different. Forecast-informed reservoir operations, or what we call FIRO. Some people say FIRO, and in my mind, like as long as you're consistent with the way you pronounce it, you're pronouncing it right. It's the reservoir operations strategy that better informs decisions to retain or release water by integrating additional flexibility in operation with enhanced monitoring and improved weather and water forecasts. And then we have a FIRO target. It's going to be the reservoir storage level based on forecasted conditions. So some operational considerations that we have currently in the water control manuals and we will maintain for these water control manual updates. We have a maximum objective flow for Yuba River near Marysville of 180,000 CFS on one of the rivers and 120,000 CFS on the other. So that way the maximum will be 300,000 CFS at the confluence. The maximum objective flow for Feather River below Yuba River is 300,000 CFS, and the maximum objective flow for Feather River below Bear River is 320,000 CFS. There's also some water supply requirements. Minimum in-stream flows are also listed. That really is only your typical things you're going to see in a water control manual about the conservation space, is if there are any minimum in-stream flow requirements.
All right. Thank you, Jenny. So we're going to dive into the more NEPA side of things here, the why we are doing these project updates. One, Jenny will go into a little bit more about the water control manuals themselves, but they're really old, right? They were written a long time ago, and there's better technology now, better information, and it would behoove all of us to be able to reflect that modern technology and information in our updated water control manuals. So that's a huge portion of the purpose of why we're doing this. The purpose and need under NEPA frames the why of the government action. So that's one of those things. The others are listed here on the screen. You can see that we want to reflect current weather patterns up and downstream. So that's an enhanced forecast abilities into their management options. We want to develop an integrated approach between the two reservoirs to coordinate the releases better. We have certain needs within the water control manuals in modernizing these. We need to make sure that we have that coordination actually described, in the water control manuals. They currently, even though they do coordinate with each other now, it's not actually written down how that coordination happens in the water control manuals. One of the things we have to do is, Jenny already mentioned Marysville Dam. That's a dam that is in our existing water control manuals. It was anticipated to be built. It never was, so they would like to remove that for the water control manual. So there's a lot of reasons as to why these manuals for these two different reservoirs are being updated. All right.
Okay, so now we're going to talk about the alternatives that we're looking at to go through the NEPA process. So we're going to start with alternative 0, which is a without project condition, basically what we're doing right now, the existing water control manual. So it's the no action alternative, the existing water control manual, but without Marysville Dam included. There's no direct modeling tie between the two reservoirs for release decisions currently as written. And a phased approach to the new spillway that Yuba Water Agency is currently wanting to build will also be shown. So we'll have alternative 0 with the new spillway included, and we'll have alternative 0 without the spillway included, so then we can do a proper analysis on all the other alternatives. Okay. So real quick, looking at the existing water control manual for Oroville Dam, which was from the 1970 water control manual. I'm not going to go into grave detail on it, but essentially the graphic you see here, the x-axis is the date. It starts in September and goes all the way to August. My eyesight, I was like, I know it says August, but I was struggling here. And then the y-axis is showing you the flood control space on one side and the total storage on the other side. And you'll see a trapezoidal type shape, which essentially is telling the people using the water control manual, which is my team, okay, in the fall, you need to draw down, so that way there's a maximum amount of flood space for the winter storms, and in the spring you're allowed to refill. And so if the water is encroached into the flood control space during any of those times, there's rules on the right-hand side which indicate what releases need to look like based on conditions at the time. So for New Bullard's Bar Dam, there's the 1972 water control manual operation. You'll see a similar setup with the dates on the bottom on the x-axis. And then with the y-axis, you'll also see the flood control space on one side and the storage of the actual reservoir on the other side. Here you'll also have that trapezoidal shape where in the fall, we'll need to draw down the reservoir in order to make room for the maximum flood space needed for the winter storms, and in the spring, there's allowed to be refilled. And there are rules at the bottom indicating what those releases might look like if you are in the flood control space. Each of these projects also has a gated spillway, and so there is also an additional graphic for how to operate the gated spillway. I did not provide those today, but if you want to see those, let me know. Now we're going to look at alternative 1. So we're going to formalize operations, Yuba Feather Forecast Coordinated Operations Program. So alternative 1 is going to include what's in an existing water control manual without Marysville Dam, but with this alternative, the water control manuals would note that Oroville and New Bullard's Bar Dam have a common downstream operating objective. It would also formalize the existing Yuba Feather Forecast Coordinated Operations Program, which was established after the 1997 event in the early 2000s, and it allows for DWR, Yuba Water, the National Weather Service, the Corps of Engineers to formally coordinate during flood events. And it will also include the phased approach to the new spillway that is currently being considered at New Bullard's Bar. So we'll have a alternative 1 with the spillway and alternative 2 without the new spillway. Alternative 1 with the new spillway and alternative 1 without the new spillway. Thank you. Okay, we did look at an alternative 3, but an alternative 2, but it did not pass the test that we felt that was appropriate to move forward to be considered. So that's why you'll see us go from 0, 1, and then to 3. So alternative 3 is going to be Yuba Feather FCO, so what's included in alternative 2, but also include the FURO operations at both projects. So it'll contain modified at-site operations for both reservoirs without Marysville Dam, a FURO alternative based on water control plans developed in the Yuba Feather FURO pilot study final viability assessment. It will formalize the Yuba Feather Forecast Coordinated Operations Program, and each reservoir will include a FURO space and a FURO target and a maximum release as a function of forecasted volumes into each reservoir. This alternative will also include a with the new spillway at New Bullard's Bar and without the new spillway at New Bullard's Bar. So kind of to graphically represent what we're talking about here with alternative 3, because it is different than what we've done historically. Here we'll show you an existing water control diagram like we looked at before. So that existing diagram is being shown with the black dashed lines. And then you'll also see a FURO space as indicated by the red hatching. And you'll notice that FURO space is in the flood space. The orange space is the flood space in this case, and in the conservation space in this case, which is blue. So it's showing you the current water control manual. We're showing you the shaded area that will include the FURO space, and it will have a primary goal to allow for flexibility in operations to forecast information. So those are the 3 alternatives we're going to be looking at moving forward. And then Mariah's going to talk more about the NEPA process itself.
Okay. At this time, we are planning on doing an environmental assessment. That is a certain level of NEPA that could change in the future if things change for us in our analysis and understanding of the impacts on resources. This slide is showing our current list of resources that we think may be affected or impacted by the proposed alternatives, which would update and change the operation management of the reservoir flood operations as prescribed in the water control manuals. So take a look. You can see there's a whole bunch of them here, right? But I'm asking you to let me know if you think that we are missing any resources. You guys have the public knowledge on the ground. I am not local to these areas. So if you think I am missing a resource, whether it's environmental, physical, or a human resource that we should be looking at when it comes to the flood control operations, what happens with that water, et cetera, please let me know. Okay, so that's one of the asks I'm asking for you guys. Our study area, Jenny pretty much covered most of this, but the Feather River watershed is has a lot of different drainage areas. We've got the West Branch, the North Fork, and the Middle Fork, and the South Fork of the rivers. We've got the reservoir itself. We have the Thermalito Afterbay and the Feather River. So that's a pretty big area that we're looking at. And then, of course, with the Yuba River watershed, we have the North, Middle, and South Yuba rivers, and the New Bullard's Bar Reservoir itself, and then the Yuba River. So these are the areas that we are looking at resources for potential impacts under as we are analyzing the alternatives. Okay, let's talk about schedule next, because we have a set time frame. So NEPA has a legally set schedule once we start the NEPA process. For an environmental assessment, that is 1 year from today. So today is our kickstarting the meeting or the process. So we are legally required under NEPA to complete the process for an environmental assessment within 1 year. We have estimated our time frame here that you see on the schedule or on the screen. This is our best guess. Things go a little, sideways sometimes in writing a document or analyzing resources, so it may be a little squidgy one way or the other, left or right. But for the most part, this is where we think we'll be developing the draft EA, and then in about the August timeframe is when we are anticipating having that draft draft environmental assessment ready for public review. That is when we will send it back out to you guys. We will notify you all, so please, it's very important that you write your names and your emails down for me so I know to reach out to you when the public review period is starting. We will post the document on our website, or if you want a hard copy, let me know. I will mail you a hard copy myself. Any way you want the document, let me know. We'll get it to you. And we'll have a 30-day public review period. Approximately 2 weeks into that time frame, we will have another meeting. We'll have a public meeting where we will discuss our findings in the draft document, and it'll give you an opportunity to figure out where we land, and give you an opportunity to comment on the NEPA document during that 30-day public review period. We have a website, which we'll post towards the end of the presentation, and we have a QR code where you can just go right to it. We're going to be posting all of our documents on that website, so we're recording this meeting. This recording will be on that website. The draft documents will be on the website. The scoping report, anything that is a public document will be found on that website for your viewing. I think that's about it. We should be having, hopefully, if all goes well, February next year, we should have a final document and a decision. All right, so if you have any information, any questions, any comments or concerns that would be, you would like to aim towards us at this point during the scoping process, right? We haven't done any analysis yet, right? We're still figuring out where we are, but if you have anything that could help us in our analysis, in understanding our alternatives, if you have an idea for a measure or an alternative that we haven't considered yet, send it our way. You could submit it by mail or email. The address is on the board. You can see it right there. We have the email address. Might be a little bit easier than snail mail, then you don't have to go through our mail room. And then, of course, you can submit those. The email goes right to us, and then if you would like to see go to the webpage where all of our public documents will be, you can scan the QR code right here, and you can go straight to the website. Works pretty good. Or you can quickly write down our very long website that we have down at the bottom of the screen there. And that is it.
I do want to add that when is release the right verb we're using here, release the NEPA documents, we'll also be releasing a draft water control manual and the draft engineering report. So you can see what, we'll take a look at it and be like, okay, we'll put in our proposed alternative for into the draft water control manual, and then you'll have all the engineering analysis. You can look at that as well. So in the August-ish time frame, you should see one draft NEPA document for Oroville, one draft NEPA document for New Bullards Bar, one draft water control manual for Oroville, one draft water control manual for New Bullards Bar, and one engineering report, because we didn't want to write 2 engineering reports and we could get away with that. So it's all going to be in one engineering report. So right now we're saying, what are your questions you have right now? What are your things you think that we should look at? If we need to go back into another slide, like Mariah's slide about like things that we think we'll be considering for the NEPA process, let us know. And so our scoping period is through the end of March, March 4th, not the end of March, the beginning of March. So 30 days from now. And as Mariah said, we'll take your comments via email or regular mail, but they must be in writing. So even if we had a conversation today, if you didn't write it down, it's not going to be included into the formal process. And then hopefully the plan is to try and get this room again for that August meeting. I'll work with Caltrans to make sure we can make that happen. And other than that, I mean, do we just turn it over for questions right now? Okay. So, and I'll play walk around with the microphone if anybody has any questions. Sure. Which one? Yes. And we're also going to be posting this presentation on our website as well. 3? 7?
The description of the alternative, or?
Oh, I think when we talked about study area. That one, yeah.
Okay.
Oh, no worries. So does anybody have any questions or comments or suggestions or anything they want to talk about? Has everybody filled out a sign-in sheet at the back? That's probably the most important thing you can do today. Like, the first important thing you could do today is to be here. The second most important thing you can do today is sign in on the sign-in sheet. And that's another thing to remember, too. Just because folks are not here does not mean that they're excluded from making any of these comments. So tell your friends, tell your family to go to the website and send us any questions, comments, concerns, suggestions that you have, that they have, and then we'll take a look at them. No? Maybe? Okay.
Thank you. When the 1970 Oregon Water Control Manual was developed, it was based upon providing enough flood control space for a 1 in 500 year flood. What sort of aspirational goal do we have coming out of this water control manual?
So please send me that comment so I can formally reply to you. But we do have some objectives that we're looking at. It doesn't have an in-year consideration, but if that's a concern you have, please write it down and then we'll get back to you on the answer.
The, 3-4 year study that FIRO did with top meteorologists on the West Coast came out with reports, and the viability analysis report said that a 1 in 346 year event would surcharge the auxiliary spillway by 5 feet for 48 hours. Picture that for a minute. 5 feet over the top of the auxiliary spillway for 48 hours. We saw what 36 hours at 6 inches did back on February of 2017. Surcharging the auxiliary spillway was a part of the water control manual in order to meet a 1 in 500 year flood in the past, to account for the lack of 260,000 acre feet of water that Marysville was provide. It appears to me that we're giving up any aspirational goals within this new water control manual for the sake of satisfying the increase in water delivery, which would be about $2 million worth based upon the FIRO analysis report, and yet we're dropping flood control. If you talk about flood control all the way down to the Bear River, the FIRO report said that's going to drop to like 109 years of flood protection. And there was other proposals out that came from FIRO that seemed to be, that was probably number 2, that doesn't seem feasible at this time, that we should establish some sort of aspirational goal. We may not be able to make it because a lot of it's going to depend on dam owners' due diligence. That means that they may have to release water from the conservation pool, which you cannot regulatory mandate. But if they can recover their conservation pool at the end of the event and still save the levees and still save the downstream communities, that's a voluntary decision that they're entitled to make. Are they not? Yes, they are. If they had the best technology that the FIRO analysis was to provide, they could provide a win-win for both. Right now, what I'm hearing is we're going to win with water delivery and we're going to lose on flood protection by about a 250-year reoccurrence rate. We're going to go from a 500 to a 250 as far as what Orville could maintain. on releases, outflows. And as far as the Nicholas area below the Bear, that area down there is going to drop to a little over 100-year protection. There should be a way to satisfy both parties. The dam was built on the promise of flood protection up here, and now we're losing it when there seems to be an approachable way. So I look forward to working under Plan 3 to stretch that to the maximum amount of flood protection, and I hope that the Sacramento District Office and the federal headquarters is open to those inputs.
Thanks for your comments, Mike. Yeah, please write those down. I know we've talked about those before. One thing to keep in mind, too, the water control manual is a flood control manual, essentially. So it's like the Corps' ultimate goal here is flood control reduction. Flood damage, I said it wrong. Flood risk reduction. So, excuse me for that. So we look at all aspects when we're updating the water control manual, but that is the ultimate goal when we're doing that. But please send me the questions so we can respond appropriately. Anybody else have any questions or thoughts? Oh, hold on. Oh, perfect. So the question was, have folks introduce themselves before they talk.
Matt Mintink, lifetime resident of this area, 4-time evacuee, 64, 86, 97, 17. Flood victim of the 86 flood. Family business, Challenge Lumber Products on Federal Boulevard, took 3.5 feet of water, had to strip down all the machineries, replace bearings, motors, lay dozens of families off for months in the process, and lost market share doing it. On a storm, on a flood that they end up paying, the state did, compensation for $456 million or so. I was asked by Senator Nielsen and Senator Nielsen and Assemblyman Gallagher to be the citizen representative on an Orville Comprehensive Needs Assessment ad hoc committee meeting. That was a 3-year process, and over the last 4 years, I've been an active member of the Orville Citizens Advisory Commission. I put hundreds of hours into researching these fire reports with the hope of Plan 2 being accepted. Complicated plan. Doesn't sound like they want to invest in the process and learn in it, on how to operate it. So we're going to go with plan something else for now and compromise some flood protection in the process. Thank you.
Thanks, Matt. Anybody else have any questions? Any questions about the NEPA process itself or a water control manual and how that operates and works?
And just on that, I would like to know that we haven't made any decisions yet, right? This is the process that we're going through in order to be able to make a decision in the end. So this is why we're asking you all to give us this information. That was a great comment. Get it to us, write it down so that we have it in our formal documentation so we can be able to address that and help us make decisions.
Yes, thank you so much, Mariah. Okay. Another scoping meeting like this, no. But if folks have questions and answers, they can formally submit them, and then we'll respond to those.
The next public meeting we will be having is the public meeting during the public review period, so sometime in about the August timeframe. I will let you guys know well in advance when that's happening, and invite you all and your friends and neighbors to join in for that. So that will be our next public meeting. But please do not hesitate to write us at either snail mail through the address there or through the email address that's up on the website or on the board right now. Get us your questions, comments, information, concerns, please.
Thank you. And there may be like a full submission bar on the website, but I'm not positive on that. So, wonderful. Okay. Anybody else have any other questions or comments? Wonderful. Well, a couple of housekeeping things. Make sure you fill out the sign-in sheet in the back. If you already have some question, concerns, comments, or suggestions, please write those down. If you think of something later, that doesn't exclude you from telling us later. But we at least want to know that you are here, so that way we can get in touch with you when we are ready to release these documents for your review. Please, any thoughts and questions you have, just send them our direction, and we'll add them to the list, and we'll take a look at them. And again, reiterating what Mariah said, we haven't made a formal decision on which alternative we're going to go with. These are just the three we're looking at. They could modify throughout the process. That happens all the time. Exactly. And then also keep in mind, there'll be the 5 documents that we talked about ready in the August-ish timeframe for y'all to review. 2 water control manuals, 2 NEPA documents, and 1 engineering report. So with that, unless y'all have questions, I think we're going to call it. Really appreciate you all being here today, and please let us know if you have any additional questions.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And you have been watching a special Bullards Bar Dam and Oroville Dam manual update, talking about the what and how that the dams would be operating under flood control situations. That's coming to you live on Yuba-Sutter.LIVE from the Caltrans building in Marysville. I'm Ted Langdell, and we've been pleased to bring you this impromptu, late scheduled program, and we hope that if you've been watching, you've been sharing it so that people know that this is online, and you can know where to ask further questions if you'd like to do that. So this is something that we do bring you as a public service right here on Yuba-Sutter.LIVE, and we will be doing more of these. Hopefully tomorrow you'll see some things about Marysville's history at the Marysville birthday, and then we have some other things going on this weekend. Here's what's coming up next week right here on Yuba-Sutter.LIVE. We have our usual Tuesday meetings that will consist of the 9 a.m. Yuba County Supervisors regular meeting, then the 3 o'clock Sutter County Supervisors regular meeting, the 6:30 p.m. that usually starts a little later than that, Marysville Unified School Trustees meeting, and the 7 o'clock Yuba City Unified School Trustees meeting. We are going to try to extract pieces out of the meeting for our for your information segments that we've been trying to drop on Wednesday, but we've just been finding that it's a little bit hard for us to do that, but we'll be making an effort to do that, and we may shift the date until Thursday. Anyway, you have been watching a special presentation here on Yuba-Sutter.LIVE, and we hope that if you have an inclination to want to keep this sort of thing happening, that you'll click the link in the text that's either above or below the video that you're watching right now, and throw us a little support. It does help keep the bills paid. We do have to pay for cell service, we do have to pay for equipment, and we do have to pay for time. Anyway, this has been a special presentation of Yuba-Sutter.LIVE, and we also get support, just by the way of information, we get some support from people like Brent Hasty, Gary Bradford, Mike Leahy, and others. You can help too, just click on the link in the text below the video. So, we'd like to tell you thanks for watching, and this has been a special presentation of Yuba-Sutter.LIVE.
Yuba-Sutter.LIVE. It's the truth that comes through.